All right, everybody. I just want to give you an update on the release of Snyder Cut movement. We can see that there's a lot of things that have transpired since this movement began. I wasn't there in the beginning, even though I did support a Snyder Cut coming out. I didn't really support the movement at the time. I thought they were negative. But this movement has achieved a number of different things already, and I just want to recount some of them. One of them is that we have a number of people in the business that have been backing this movement. So that's really cool. Zack Snyder definitely is behind it. We had people like Jason Momoa, Ray Fisher, Ciaran Hinds, a lot of the crew, behind the scenes crew, the photographer for the presentation of this movie was also behind it. That would be Clay Enos. So we have a number of people in the business. Unofficially, I think that also the movement has gathered steam. People like myself who were sort of skeptical about the movement and the accuracy of the facts in the movement have now been persuaded, and we're going full steam ahead with this movement. There's a lot of people on board, and that's nice. Seeing Twitter lit up almost every single day with release of Snyder Cut comments is also very nice. In addition, I have some sources which are unverified, so I will not use those sources, but suffice it to say, it seems as though Warner Brothers has heard the Snyder Cut movement and they're trying to move in that direction. This is from unconfirmed sources, so I cannot really personally verify any bit and piece of information I have. However, I would say this, that there's a movie coming out, and that movie is called The Meg. It's about a megalodon shark, the biggest shark. And I would say that someone sort of encouraged me and tried to persuade me to go see that movie for a particular reason. So we'll see what happens. I'm not going to say anything much more specific about that, except they're saying that this is all a rumor. Of course, it's unverifiable, but they're saying that if you go and watch the end of that movie, you may or may not see something there that could hint to some sort of idea concerning the Snyder Cut. I don't know. I think it's a long stretch, but this is the conversation I had with the individual at the time. So I don't know if I'll be going to see it or not. We'll see. I don't know. Jason Statham is in that movie. But we have also a number of very positive things arriving out of this movement. As I said before, it's a little bit more organized than before. I would suggest to many of you guys that have been sympathetic to this movement and to what it's doing, that you understand what the movement is about. So the movement basically, as most people said online, it's really a movement concerning the way how directors are treated, specifically at Warner Brothers, but to a wider extent, we've seen directors being treated pretty badly by studios as of late. We saw James Gunn being fired. We saw some directors. We heard from Waika Waititi and some other directors who talked about how sometimes the executives in the studio had some sort of creative control over him and what he would like to have done. And this is something we know that is common in the industry. But what I wanted to say is that when it comes to studios, someone like Universal sometimes and Warner Brothers, I know you have big budget films, and these films are supposed to rake in huge amounts of money. But at the same time, I don't think it ever makes sense for the executive arm to get involved in the actual creative process, which is really specialized to a particular director. The thing I think the executive should be doing is, if they're encouraged to hire a particular director, to free that director up to do his vision. How can you hire a director if he's not in line with your vision? You should have screened him to be able to get him in there. If that's not the director in line with the vision that you want, why did you hire him? And once you hire him and he starts to present and he's doing things, you can't, when he's full stream ahead, like 100% through principal photography, you do not want to be now turning around and changing your tune on that. That is a very foolish move. So you should be able to vet your directors from the get-go to decide what you want to do. Now, personally, I don't have a problem with Warner Brothers deciding to go in a particular route, if they want to go Marvelized route or whatever. I can't condemn them for that. But what I can do is I can tell them, as someone who's going to pay for their movies, I'm not going to go watch their movies if it's Marvelized. And like I said before, the direction that they have been moving in is to marvelize the universe. I even spoke about that even when I was in favor of Justice League and trying to speak about, fusion of both worlds. But I did not expect them to go to this extent. And this is what kind of, and then I got very jaded when I realized the reality of the situation is that they were lying about a lot of things. And I was literally seeing it in plain sight, but listening to them because they wanted to sell their movie. So if Justice League is any indication as to what the fan base thinks of what Warner Brothers tries to go in a Marvelized format, I would say very, very sharply again that they should think very hard about how they do their next set of trailers for their movies. So it's how you pitch. Now, again, I can't really say that because if James Wan is going that route, James Wan is going that route. You hired a certain director, maybe that's the way James Wan is going. So I don't want them to compromise the directors that they have there now. If the directors that they have there is going that kind of way, then that's what it is. Don't compromise the directors. Don't try to make a director do something serious when the director wasn't going that direction. But I seriously believe that James Wan was trying to go. In fact, when I listened to the interview with the Collider guy and Jeff Johns, it seems as though James Wan actually went in a kind of dark place, in a creepy dark place with the movie that is Aquaman. So it seems as though James Wan is getting to do what James Wan wants to do, but the trailers do not indicate that. And I'm looking at the trailers. Now, I know trailers can be misleading, as well as I know trailers can be misleading in a negative way, because how we were pitched Justice League, even the Heroes trailer pitched Zack Snyder's scenes of Justice League, and these were completed scenes that we saw in the trailer. So I don't want to be misled by James Wan either. Now, the first trailer I've seen of Aquaman looked very marvelized. It looked marvelized. It did have a hint of Disney, the Disney Star Wars, particularly the Clone Wars sequence, which was, I think WB owned it or Disney owned it. I can't remember. But it reminded me a little bit of the Clone Wars, but not quite. And I didn't really I wasn't particularly interested in the CGI at that time. Now, let me give a little plug for Warner Brothers here. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But I'm plugging them concerning their upcoming movie, which is the Megalodon. Megalodon is an underwater movie. It's about the sea. It's about this huge shark. And the CGI in that does look pretty good. All right? It looks pretty good. It looks pretty realistic. Now, if Aquaman gets anywhere near that or even better than that, then I'm going to have to retract all my statements about Aquaman and absolutely go see it. Because I found the CGI for the Megalodon that I saw, if that's a test pilot for what they're doing for Aquaman, then it's going to be great. But if not, then it's going to be a problem. So I have not been following up on the Aquaman news. I think Dave Ethan and Larry Kong and those other guys have been following up on those things. But for me, I haven't been following up on those movies. All right. Now, but the whole point behind it is I was trying to give you an update on the release of Snyder Cut movement. Now, the importance of the release of Snyder Cut movement is because we do not want big budget studios. I know that you have these big budget films. These are massive films. Don't want to go wrong with them. But I truly believe that these big budget studios need to think about not touching what the director is doing. Kind of have a hands-off approach, just like other directors. You think Christopher Nolan. He did not try to influence heavily Zack Snyder. Once Zack Snyder took over, Christopher Nolan had a hands-off approach towards Zack Snyder. If Zack came to him to talk to him about something, then Nolan was involved. That's the same way executives, producers, and studios need to be. Now, Jeff Johns was in the executive arm of Warner Brothers, and now he's not in there. So he was an executive as well. And the bottom line behind it is, if you want a really good movie, and even Zack Snyder said this, and most directors will tell you that, the less studio involvement in that movie allows it to be the best possible artistic work. BVS suffered from Warner Brothers' involvement at the last minute, chopping up Zack Snyder's film. And these executives, no matter what they say or do, that's where they dropped the ball. They were afraid that this long film would be worse than the shorter film. That is to say, that having a longer film, it would bore audiences and they wouldn't watch it. Now, they test piloted that by trying to do Blade Runner 2049, which is a work of art. And audiences did say that it was boring. But Blade Runner 2049 is even more of a dramatic film and a thriller than Batman v Superman. Do I think that there would have been more backlash to Batman v Superman had the ultimate cut come out? No, it would have had less. And just from all the people who viewed it, including critics, who saw the ultimate cut that flowed better than the sort of avant-garde circular cut that we got with the theatrical cut, which left out some important information. We got more information with the ultimate cut. You learn once again with Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder takes his time with films. Warner Brothers should have understood that and allowed Zack Snyder to have his time. They knew about this since Watchmen. When Zack Snyder put out Watchmen and they had that chopped up cut, it never worked out. When he put out the director's cut, then the ultimate cut, people really, really enjoyed it much more. Now, I'm not saying that the audience that actually would seek after those cuts wouldn't be a selected audience, but the point is it was better feedback. All right. I want to say also that when you think about, so studio interference into films is never works out well. Never does. Rian Johnson did Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Now, while it did not make as much money as the preceding movie, which was The Force Awakens, Rian Johnson lived and died by what he wanted to do. And so, regardless of what you say, whether you blame Rian Johnson or not, his vision came out on the screen, and not a whole lot of his vision didn't come out on the screen. He this is what he wanted. He was living and dying by that. Warner Brothers has to understand, a guy like Zack Snyder, for instance, and the way how I do truly believe if they had allowed Zack Snyder's vision for Justice League to come out, I think it would have made, it definitely would have made more money than the cut we got, right? Way more. But the thing about it, it might have been the highest raking in movie, which would have been somewhat controversial because Zack Snyder constantly wants you to think. He wants you to process his movies. He wants you to feel a little bit uncomfortable. So that would have come about. I think it would have been probably crossed $1 billion. It would have crossed $1 billion. Hold on one second. You got some background noise here. Now, me personally, as a person who enjoys movies that are very rewatchable, that is, every time you watch them, you see something new. I absolutely appreciate Zack Snyder's movies, as you know, and you guys have seen me going through Batman v Superman again. There's lots of stuff we miss in that movie, and we've been going through it for 2 years and something, right? Probably go on 3 years and still be talking about it. But the point is, with Zack Snyder's movies, a lot of people do not seem to understand, at least the ones who are critical of his work, they do not seem to understand what he's even saying when he's storytelling. They just blanketly start speaking about how he's fascist and he's this and he's that, when in fact he's not. Now, what's very interesting about Justice League is Warner Bros. Seem to have been afraid that because Zack Snyder's name is attached to the stuff, that it would have had some kind of negative repercussion. By the way, shout out to all you guys in the chat section. I know some of you guys are already in the chat section there. Get to you guys right there. I know you guys are talking in the chat section. Damian Anson Vincent, shout out to you. DJ Lawson found a Snyder Cut announcement through the Meg. Don't know how believable that sounds. And Damian Anson Vincent says, I totally agree. Right. Again, this is an unverifiable source that I got some of this information from. So I don't know how true it is. Right. But what I can tell you is the Meg looks like a test pilot for Aquaman film. I don't know how good it will be and all of that, but it's kind of a thriller movie. And, you know, the sharks underwater and the movement of the sharks in the water and all that stuff should be interesting. How they simulate that stuff. How you guys going, man? How's your evening being? I hope you guys are doing well. So getting back to what I was saying. So anyway, this is the important thing. The important thing is that you understand, Zack Snyder is pretty dangerous. He has some subversive themes inside of his movies, which literally call out certain people and establishments, right? And that kind of goes in line with artists such as, you know, the guerrilla graffiti artists such as I just talked about Banksy, right? It goes in line with, and he uses sometimes classical artworks and he flips it to interpret it for the given situation. So Zach's done, you know, he's done history and art. And that's why you cannot even try to call Zack Snyder. Do not mention Zack Snyder's name in the same vein as Michael Bay. Michael Bay doesn't do any of that stuff. Okay, he's nowhere on that level. Okay, Zack is meticulous. There's a lot of detail. Nobody talks about Michael Bay's films like that. Michael Bay is an action director. Zack is not necessarily an action director. He's a meticulous actor. He's a visual director, maybe, but he's a meticulous director that gives details. He's very detailed in his movies. Okay. Anyway, so I do see how Zack Snyder could fall out of favor with Hollywood because of the daring nature he has. He brings up topics and issues which say, that are not prevalent and contemporary to his Hollywood peers. Zack's not leftist or right. You can see he's not right wing or leftist. And it's very interesting that people say that his stuff is misunderstood, but that's why he's not good for the DCEU. But that's why I love him for the DCU. And that's why there is not a niche. People are saying niche. How could Batman v Superman be niche and he makes $873 million? And then on top of that, now grosses up to $950 million when you cater for the home box office. No, that's not niche. Okay, that is not niche. Okay, so when people say that Zack Snyder's films are niche, I don't know what they're talking about. Okay, but I do believe Justice League would have surpassed Batman v Superman if it hadn't been sabotaged, and I think they sabotaged the film, quite frankly. Yeah, it's nice to know that you're good, man. Nice to know you're good. Damien Antonis says, I agree. The studios need to let the director work. Yeah, absolutely. You see, and this is what the Snyder Cut movement is about. All right. So for those of you who didn't know, or those of you who are, even when I behave certain ways, sometimes I behave emotionally a certain way. I'm fighting furiously for this cut to come out. And I'm fighting now tooth and nail. And mind you, this is not affecting the theatrical cut that went, right? This is not affecting the theatrical cut anymore. Theatrical cut has finished its run. So I am fighting tooth and nail for what it is. And I'm warning Warner Brothers continuously, because people like me now, we've waken up a bit, that you cannot afford, I'm telling them now, you cannot afford to have these future DCEU movies going along the slant of your failed DCEU Justice League movie, where the director, there was a change in director, and they took the opportunity to try and twist, to turn the whole, to try to cut short and sort of cut short the movie, sabotage the movie, and turn it in the direction they wanted to go in. That's a stupid thing to have done. It means if they would do that for that movie, they would do it for other directors as well. So this movement is definitely trying to protect the other directors that are upcoming, the James Wans, the Patty Jenkins, the David Sandbergs. Okay. And while I do believe, just looking at these directors, David Sandberg is known for his comedy. He's done a lot of comedy films, raunchy comedy, kind of edgy comedy, but still he's a comedy kind of guy. So they picked that director for Shazam. And again, Shazam is a funny character. So I think he's a good director for that. I don't think they should have had those two brothers for the Flash movie, but it is what it is. Why would you get rid of? Anyway, whatever. But they know what they want to do. Now, I may not be interested in what they want to do, but nonetheless, they have an idea where they want to go. Now, the thing about it is, there are two things that bother me. The first one is that, one, Aquaman, as I said before, I have concerns about Aquaman, very serious concerns about Aquaman. And in the fact that Warner Brothers is not even going to address the issue of Justice League, the Snyder Cut, they're not even addressing it. They're not even trying to think about it. And they think they can move on from that, is one of the most dangerous things they could possibly do. Because regardless of whether Snyder's films have been divisive or controversial or whatever, they've been his films. And if you are saying, I'm going to mute this director's voice, he's not going to have any more voice. I'm not going to give him no cut that he wants. Now, this is going to be the first time they do that, because, see, they did it for Watchmen. They gave him his cuts. They did it for BVS. They screwed him over BVS. They still gave him his cuts after. With Justice League, they're not even going to try and entertain the notion of giving his cuts. That's not right. Now, he probably didn't have an agreement with them before, because he probably abruptly had to leave for whatever reason. Maybe they fired him. Maybe they wanted to kick him off. Finally, they got rid of him, whatever. But at the end of the day, I can tell that the executive, Jeff Johns, and all these people were not satisfied with Zack Snyder, and they wanted to get a certain feel that they wanted. And I truly believe that what they want clearly is substandard to what Zack is doing, in my opinion. And so if they are trying to, they think they're course correcting because of the critics and because of the detractors and because of the Marvel fans, they think they're course correcting. They're going to learn very quickly that they're walking into a trap. The critics are going to change their tune. They're still not going to rate them very highly. And then the fans, the Marvel fans that are expecting to come to their universe and support them, they'll realize they're not there, just like with Justice League, and their movie will flop. In fact, these fans are looking for a way to trounce the DCEU. So, as I said before, they're really playing a very dangerous game, and they don't realize that. And I'm seeing it steps ahead, and I know how rabid fans are. And this is not the age where they could have done those things to say directors like Superman, the Superman 1978 director. You know what I'm talking about, guys. And what they did to Tim Burton, they can't get away with those things. They can't get away with the things that they did to these directors. Now they got away with Air because we kind of weren't really paying attention to what they did, and then the truth came out when Air actually admitted that there were scenes that were removed from the film, which would have made the film much more interesting. And we learned that they did it to Zack as well earlier on in the creative process when Zack was trying to introduce Metallo. I don't know what happened there. But what we do know is they've done this repeatedly. And usually when they do these things repeatedly, it brings forth bad returns for them. This has been their history. And I just don't understand why these people don't get that. You want to sell toys? Stick with what you're doing. You want to appeal to the kids? Stick with what you're doing. I keep on emphasizing these points to Warner Bros. Don't try to tailor make your trailers to appease fans that you don't have. You have to appease the people you have first, and then expand your horizons to the people you don't have. And you have to count on the people you have to be able to show people what it is you're bringing to the table. Critics gave his movies bad ratings because Zack consistently holds up the mirror at them. That's correct, Damian Antovincent. Zack holds a mirror to a lot of people, gives a lot of people a lot of spankings when they go into the theater. They feel, every one of us, I myself personally felt uncomfortable with certain things in the movie, and that's the problem. Damian Antovincent says people are making this political. That's right. They're making movies. Now, I'm not saying that Zack doesn't do political movies in a different kind of way. It's not the usual politics. It's basically he's coming from a humanistic point of view, just like Bansky comes from a humanistic point of view, but he makes political statements. But at the same time, what's amazing to me is all of these people, they get slapped in the face, and Hollywood really got some pretty hard slaps in the face because of that. And of course, we have the Me Too movement coming out of Wonder Woman, which Zack wrote, which I hear Jeff Johns giving claim for he and Patty writing the story. And, you listen to all of these things and how Jeff Johns is subtly trying to undermine Zack. You can feel that, and doesn't want to even hear Zack's name in there. And it's funny because to me, when Jeff Johns takes these reins and he thinks he has something, he's going to realize that without Zack Snyder, your universe is going to fall into millions of pieces. Now, I went up on, I think it was Vero, and some guy was talking about how, Zack was shooting for a trilogy, and then all the other directors would revolve around that trilogy, reference it in their different movies. And that was it for Zack Snyder. And Zack actually agreed with that. I don't know if it was completely agreed with that statement or accompanying statement. I'm not too sure because, there was a piece in Vero where the guy was asking Zack a question. But nonetheless, my point being that at the end of the day, Zack Snyder has repeatedly he's come through for Warner Bros. In spite of the fact that there was a political agenda against this guy because of what he puts in movies. Zack Snyder, every single Zack Snyder movie has exposed things that people did not like. Okay. And so what they would do is they would flip the script and say that, Zack Snyder is just an action director. Zack Snyder is a fascist. Zack Snyder is this, that, the other. And Zack Snyder is none of those things, right? But what's even more interesting, any guy lost his daughter, right? Adopted daughter. Why are you adopting children if you're a fascist, right? Anyway, be that as may, here's the thing that really gets me. So after all is said and done, and these people are about to commit suicide, right? Are you apologetic? Do you realize what the fans? Do you realize what the fans are doing? Do you realize that the fans are on the verge of boiling over and just swarming you and just forgetting about you completely? Do they understand that their comic book universe can be destroyed this time, and that the detractors, all the people who have been always talking about, oh, the DCU will never last, they'll actually get their wishes because of someone in Warner Brothers who has this brilliant idea? They have great directors, they have great stories, but you have the executive arm of Warner Brothers doing shit continuously doing foolishness. And that's the problem. They make very poor choices. And I don't know who informs them, but they're making some very stupid decisions. And that's their problem. They have it. They have what it takes to make the universe well. Why would you abandon the very people who support you and try and trick them to do what? You know, I never quite got that part. You have a strong fan base that is willing to support and defend you, and you are able to make some money, and you're making more money as the films go along, and then all of a sudden you're going to sabotage everyone because of Wonder Woman? Patty Jenkins ain't Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder, Zack Snyder. Let Zack Snyder do what Zack Snyder does. I just didn't get it. And so, you know, I feel like, honestly, now looking back, I regret, you know, saying with Dave Ethan that, you know, those who hated the Justice League theatrical cut don't deserve the Snyder cut. Actually, I get why they hate the theatrical cut now. I get it. It's not that the theatrical cut itself, the movie itself, is something that is bad. It's that the what cut, when there was a better cut that was there already, almost completed, and they just forsook that and they sabotaged it pretty much by chopping out massive pieces of it and shortening it up and having Joss Whedon reshoot more than he should have reshot. Really hits me hard. I can see why people hate that cut. I can see why they hate it, because it represents an idea, a motive, a motivation by Warner Brothers to literally sabotage a director in order to get their way. It was one thing if it was a different director. So you say Zack Snyder's movie, and then we had Joss Whedon's movie, and Joss Whedon did his movie. That's a totally different story. To you have a Zack Snyder movie with his name on it, and it's not what Zack Snyder intended to give to the fans. That is really bad. It's atrocious by the studio. And not only that, but the fact that they did this once means they can do it again. So what's to say they're not doing it to James Wan's movie? And I told you, I don't feel impressed by James Wan's movie. And the reason is, in the backdrop of what happened with Zack Snyder's film, I can see now my attention is paid to what James Wan's movie is looking like and how they're selling it. And everything about it is marvelous, in my opinion. You know, just how the little kids accost the little kid and everything looks so marvelous. And it bothers me, because while I've seen that in Wonder Woman with the little girl, and she was a little bit annoying when I saw her, it is really annoying when I see the little boy and the two boys accosting him. You know, they're too clean cut. They're too Marvel looking. If you go back to Man of Steel and you see the little kids accosting Clark, they have character. They have definition in them. You know, you don't see that with the Marvel films. I'm sorry, the DCEU upcoming films that I see. And these are things you have to watch at. You look at Shazam, again, too simplified. The characters, there's no character in the characters, and it bothers me a bit. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I said, again, I say to Warner Brothers again, if this is the approach you're going with, and you were unapologetic for what happened with Zack Snyder, I don't care what rumors go around. It could be that you're going to put out a Zack Snyder trailer tomorrow. Does that mean your trajectory has changed? Does that mean you have changed the director and put it back in the hands of James Wan for James Wan to do what James Wan does? Then your trailers would reflect that. What David Sandberg's doing with Shazam, if that's where you're going with Shazam, fine. Now you see people already critiqued Shazam, and they're talking about the fact that the adult Shazam should be street smart, like Billy is street smart. So if he's not street smart and he's just kind of ignorant of everything, then there's a dissonance in tone right there. So I hope they get that right. My point being that when you're looking at these different stories, you got to understand that the audience you're dealing with. And the audience you're dealing with is the people who are not just dumb, stupid people, okay? Some people you know, in other cinematic universes are dumb, stupid people. They're just loyal and that's it. They're dumb and stupid and they're loyal. Okay. That's not what the DCU fans generally are. They're not dumb. They're not stupid. They generally find worth in things. They really look for a story with something where they can rewatch it. And the rewatchability has to be in terms. The rewatchability has to be in terms. Let's make it abundantly. The rewatchability has to be in terms of a film where you're getting something worth rewatching. So that I go back and watch it again, I see things I didn't see before. That's rewatchability for the DCEU fans. Okay, they're not just in love with the movie. Oh, I love this scene, and they play it over and over again. No, this is a different type of fan. So if you don't know your demographic, if you don't understand your fan base, then you're going to find yourself screwed over. Okay, when you try to dumb down everything to make it like the MCU, what you end up doing is driving off these fans who actually enjoyed movies which actually an adult could look at. An adult, I say, not no teenager, not no little child, an adult. Ask me, how many times have I seen Suicide Squad? And I'm going to tell you twice, and that's it. I haven't gone back to revisit Suicide Squad. I've been spending most of my time in BVS, Man of Steel. I spent more time with Justice League than I probably deserve to spend, but I spent it anyway. And I also spent a little bit of time on Wonder Woman, not a whole bunch of time on Wonder Woman. My point being, if you give me something that is not really rewatchable, it might be enjoyable, but not rewatchable, I don't know how to watch it again. But if you give me something that's enjoyable and rewatchable, I could spend years looking at that thing and studying it and comparing it to other notable films. Something you can't do with a Michael Bay film, by the way. You can't just sit down and rewatch and see something new, okay? So please stop comparing Zack Snyder to Michael Bay detractors, because it's not true. Alex Leadbeater, stop it, man. You know you're getting paid to hate, but come on, stop being an idiot, man. So this is what I wanted to say. DJ Lost and Fun says Jeff Johns strikes again. Yep. David Anton Vincent says it's supposed to be a 5-part Superman story. I don't know about all of that. Again, I don't have verifiable information to support that, so I can't really say that. But what I can say to you is, Zack Snyder said yes to the trilogy part of it. There was supposed to be a trilogy and stop, and then other people were supposed to refer to it and stuff. But it wasn't that. Okay. So until it wasn't, let's just put it that way. But I want to say that I hope that we're pushing hard. We're getting some success with the Snyder Cut, release the Snyder Cut movement. We're getting more organized. Again, Fiona is trying to do the organization for that. You know, there are rumors, like I said, circulated about you know, something to do with the Snyder Cut, with the Meg film that's coming up, the Megalodon film. I don't know how true that is. Spoke to someone, and they were saying that it was 100% at least true for what they know, their knowledge of it, but I cannot verify that. So it's just a rumor. All right. Just like how they said, you know, the Snyder Cut would be put out in Comic-Con, which most of us believed that it wasn't going to happen, but we still were looking to see what would happen. But what was surprising to me was nobody even mentioned the Snyder Cut in Comic-Con. That is, the fans, or if they did, I didn't see any information on that. So I'm looking to see. I noticed that Warner Bros. Kind of staying away from answering questions concerning that. That is interesting as well. But when you don't answer, Warner Brothers, believe you me, that we take that as a no. So you better start talking. You better start talking, open your mouth, say something definitive on that, because we're taking those answers now as no's. So anyway, the Snyder Cut movement has now actors. They got people in the business, casting and crew, people who have actually seen the movie as well. We know Zack Snyder shared it among friends and family, according to one account. We know that the executives also saw the movie. Some people were saying, some executives were saying it was unwatchable. I would believe that those executives who were saying that, they were probably, again, people who are detractors of Zack Snyder within the camp of the DC. I would not be surprised if some of those people who were involved in that, all right, I wouldn't be surprised some of the people involved in that would not be somewhere around Jeff Johns' influence, okay? And I just think that Jeff Johns was jealous of Zack Snyder for his achievement, and I truly believe he can't do better, and he knows that. And if I were him, you know, if I were him, I would You know, he pretends to back Zack Snyder in the foreground, but in the background, he's cutting him. He's trying to undercut Zack, I believe. And that's what I truly believe. I may be wrong. I may be 100% wrong. I don't mind being wrong. But that's what I truly believe. Because he's right now, he got his hands on all the other DCEU films, right? He's basically the guy manning the ship, which is what the detractors wanted, which is what the critics wanted, which is what the Marvel tars wanted, right? And I just don't think this is going to work out well, quite frankly. So I'm hoping, I really am hoping that, because not for me at least, the universe will not be great for me. All right. Damian Anthony Vincent said, the problem is that people believe that the director must not deviate from the comics. You know, again, it's an adaptation. It's called a comic book adaptation. So you can deviate from the comics however you want. Why would you want to go see the comics on the stream? Just, you know, ad route. That's stupid. DJ Lawson Fox, but you make a good point, Damian Anthony Vincent. But I think a lot of people fell in love with the Christopher Reeve Superman of Superman 1978, not understanding that Superman only lasted one film. The second film, Richard Donner was kicked off the project. So as much as people say they're faithful to Richard Donner and they love him, he was kicked off by Warner Brothers in the second film before he was finished. Okay. Sound familiar to folks? It's basically the same thing that Zack Snyder happened to Zack Snyder, right? And so, quite frankly, the franchise went down after that. Okay. Superman franchise has not recovered since until Zack Snyder. Okay. Nobody could get Superman to work until Zack Snyder. You hear me? So the next guy who is being underappreciated is the new age Richard Donner. You get what I'm saying? The new age Richard Donner. This is the new age of Richard Donner. And he was able to get 3 films done. Stupidity that they did back when Richard Donner's time, they trying to pull off with Zack Snyder. Okay, so how are you gonna have a DCEU without Zack Snyder? How are you gonna have it? I'm interested. I'm just curious. How are you gonna have that? Right? So good luck, Jeff Johns. You failed on Green Lantern. Right? That was supposed to be your movie, and you failed on that majorly. You know, this dude just don't get it, man. Just don't get it. You know, trying to fight down Zack Snyder. You serious? Come on, man. Anyway, so that's what's happening. And I would say that, yes, Warner Bros. Was trying to move into a lighter view of the DCEU, and they were moving towards that. I just don't understand why they would jeopardize that by messing with the director's cut. And then after that, you don't want to put out the cut the director had. You know what I'm saying? And they think that for some foggy reason in their mind, they think by holding back that cut, and they would have a smoother sailing for their universe because people will not notice the change, not understanding the core of your base. The core people who go see your movies are very much aware of this. That's why they're protesting, and they have the Release the Snyder Cut movement. These are the people you get the bulk of your money from. You know, DJ Lawson Found says that's a huge issue. Exactly. DJ Lawson said, even though the so herald Infinity War strays far from the comics, but it's Marvel, so it's celebrated. Don't even remind me about Infinity War, because you know, some troll on these trolls. Oh, by the way, there are some Marvel trolls that are coming through on the Release the Snyder Cut movement, and they're trying to sneak in Marvel. They're trying to sneak in Marvel. One troll, he came in and said, you know, Release the Snyder Cut. You got to go. And he showed the 2 Russo brothers have the Snyder Cut. And I'm like, hey, dude, never do that again. Right. And he tried to troll me for a while. And I kept on saying, grow the F up. I put that meme, GIF. I just stonewalled him with growing the F up. That's a straight up stonewalled him. Right. And then there was another guy, because what they're trying to do now is they're trying to come in with jokes, except they really are trying to say, you know, you need to stop pushing for the Snyder Cut. So we have this Marvel tard group of people who want to see the DCU go in that direction so they could sink it. Basically, they don't want the DCU to continue. So if it can become like the MCU, then they can just get rid of the, get rid of the DCU. And maybe Disney will buy over Marvel or some shit like that. So the DCU. But at the end of the day, we know we need to have something separate from that. So we have these fools coming around and talking about, the Snyder Cut movement and they attacked even Fiona just recently as well, who is trying to coordinate. They're trying to attack the Snyder Cut people. We're just not taking them on anymore. We're pushing for what we need to get, and we're making our voices clear to Warner Brothers, because we know the detractors, they're not putting no money to the Warner Brother films. Some of them are, but they didn't give bad word of mouth, so it doesn't really matter. We have some Marvel fans who go across to the DCU with Suicide Squad. They migrated across, and then we had Wonder Woman. They migrated more across, and then with Justice League, some of them even came across. So we had the Marvel fans coming, but it's not in a significant number. It's not going to be a whole bunch of Marvel. The bulk of people who support the DCEU are DCEU fans, and Warner Bros. Better understand that, because you can have some Marvel fans come across. Some Marvel say, "Hey, that was a good movie," or whatever. But at the end of the day, you ain't going to have the bulk of people coming across the DCU. You have some people who support both Marvel and DC, but they're not in the majority. The majority of people who support the DCEU are DCEU fans, not DC fans, mind you, DCEU fans. They came to the DCEU because of Man of Steel, okay, or Batman v Superman, one of them, all right? And these people are a substantial portion of fans out there, okay? When the DCEU fans was slashed in half, that's when we had some problems. That's why Justice League flopped, right? Didn't bomb, but it flopped. Next film will bomb if they continue along that line. They should have realized that. They should course correct immediately. They should be like, shit, we messed up with Justice League. We messed up with Justice League. You know what? But they seem to be going along the lines of, okay, so we didn't get everything finished, and Joss Whedon didn't get enough influence in there. Now, if we can fully do it with Joss Whedon, Joss Whedon like influence, we have to get our, executives and stuff to really Whedonize, Marvelize the universe, because Whedon is the king of Marvel, right? He was the guy that did the Avengers, right? So they're still trying to go down the road of Marvelizing the universe, and they're going to get a shock if they try to do that. If they try to do that, again, a majority of DCEU fans, from the time the DCEU fans, they'll give Warner Brothers a chance to correct themselves. They'll go watch the movie. Some of them will go watch Aquaman, because it's not going to be a whole bunch of them, because we know the media is going to come down hard on them as they approach the time of Aquaman. It's going to be negative media and so on, right? We know how it goes. They attack DC, right? We get it. But when those fans go in there and they see a movie that is Marvelized, and it is not like DC, it can have, watch Wonder Woman. I remember a guy saying Wonder Woman was a Marvel film, and if you see how the DCEU fans rose up and said, shut the hell up, it's not a, fuck you, it's not no Marvel film. And they really severely dissed they dissed the guy who said that, and it's like, that is not a fucking Marvel film, right? Now, but when if they go and they think that they're going to just step in there and Marvelize the DCEU after Justice League. You remember they tried to Marvelize Justice League with Joss Whedon, and from what I heard from behind the scenes stuff, which is unconfirmed, it sounded like Joss Whedon was trying very hard to literally make the movie into a laughingstock. Okay, the opening scene with Batman and the robber, which was redone, he said Joss Whedon had a lot more jokes in that. And the robber was supposed to kind of sort of humiliate Batman. So that was the kind of shit we were going to get if Joss Whedon really truly had his way. He was kind of reined in. And then, of course, people protested about Joss Whedon having Wonder Woman, the Flash fall on Wonder Woman. People protested that. And Joss Whedon didn't have a problem with it. And they got the laughs in the cinema. I even talked to a Marvel fan, and he was talking about, that's cool, man. For the nerds, and the nerds, they would see. I said, I'm a fucking nerd. What the hell are you talking about? I'm not defending that shit. That shit is out of order. Wonder Woman never gets treated like that. And so I went on to say, and even some people talk about how the Flash was like a comedian throughout the movie, and you never really see the nerd part of him. You really didn't see the nerd part of him. He was just like the butt of jokes. And I feel that Whedon again and Warner Bros. Chopped down what the Flash was really about and what it was supposed to be, and really just kind of dumbed the character down. And I feel like they're trying to dumb down Aquaman as well. And that's not, Aquaman ain't no fool. How you gonna be the king of the seven seas and you a fool? So when I heard Mira saying, man, you probably should just not talk, I was like, what the hell, man? That's disrespectful to Aquaman. That's not Aquaman. Y'all seen the new 32 Aquaman? Y'all seen the Aquaman from Throne of Atlantis? You don't talk to Aquaman like that. You know what I'm saying? And even how Whedon kind of portrayed Aquaman in Justice League when he was bumbling about the truth and stuff. When I look back at it, it still felt a little bit disrespectful because you're supposed to feel intimidated by Aquaman. You know, Aquaman's an kind of intimidating character. And we kind of lost some of that intimidation, that edge off of Aquaman. And it just, you know, I started to be, because that's what we were sold in the trailers, right? When we saw Aquaman talk, remember when he turned to Bruce Wayne, he said talk, and then we slammed him, bam. You know what I'm saying? We got sold the idea that Aquaman's a badass. We didn't really quite get that in Justice League, and it looks like James Wan's carrying it on. I'm saying, and it looks like he's not a badass at all, and he's just yelling "yee-haw" when he jumps out of the plane and stuff. And some of it's kind of annoying, to be honest with you. It was different with Justice League. You can see he was breaking free, but now why that yeehaw? And so some of that stuff feels out of place. And I don't know, man. I just feel like the committees, man, them freaking executives, man, they got their hands all up in James Wan stuff, and it's annoying to me. You know what I'm saying? Damian Anton Vincent says Jay Oliver said Man of Steel was never meant to be a sequel because it was supposed to be chapter 1 of a 5-chapter story. Notice how BVS follows exactly after Man of Steel. It's like book 2 of Harry Potter. Yeah, it was supposed to be a trilogy. Zack Snyder was saying it was supposed to be a trilogy, and that was it. And basically, you were supposed to have, you know, you were supposed to have that trilogy, and then that was it. You know, it was a wrap. Kind of like what happened with The Dark Knight. It was supposed to be a trilogy. So, you know, The Dark Knight trilogy, same thing. That was what they were going for. But Zach was talking about opening up a universe. If Batman and Superman could exist, then you could have this universe. So it was still going to be a universe, but not in the typical way. It was supposed to be a universe where other characters would reference that universe. It was not necessarily supposed to be. It was going to end in Justice League, in other words. It was going to end in Justice League. It was Justice League Part 1 and Part 2 they were initially doing, and then they changed it up to be just one film. But at the end of the day, is what it is. I'm just saying, give us the Justice League that Zack Snyder was going to show us. Give us that. All right? And that's that. So at the end of the day, you know, if it wasn't a 5-part series, you know, it's cool. Not really interested in 5 parts. It's okay. We can stop where Zack stopped. What I'm just saying is make sure you give us what Zack was doing. That's all I'm saying. David Antivis, they attacked Fiona? Yeah, some asshole attacked Fiona, calling her, what do they call her? Stupid. I remember another guy trying to call me stupid as well. And he begins the whole thing by saying that, you know, the people in the Snyder Cut movement need to grow the F up, right? And then, so I turn around and I say, well, maybe you should take your own advice, bro, because you don't even understand what the movement's about. And, you know, when I started to hit him with it, he said, I'm stupid. Because, you know, he couldn't respond. And I said, you need to grow the F up. That's what I told him. You know, I used the meme. I didn't curse. I used the meme. But because that's what he used. So I used it back on him. And they can't take it. A lot of these guys are just trolls, though. They're just there to waste your time. Damian Anton Vincent says, Infinity War was garbage. Painful to watch. Yeah. Don't throw those directors in front of my face. Just kick them aside. I don't want to see that. Infinity War is a bunch of crap, as far as I'm concerned. I don't want to talk about it. So at the end of the day, what I'm saying to you guys is the release of Snyder movement is Snyder Cut movement is actually having progress. It's moving forward. What we have to do, though, is we have to continue to put the pressure on those of you need to still, you know, if you're going to put in comments to put hashtag release the Snyder Cut, there's a lot of us out there. It's growing in numbers, which is good. We have to keep the pressure on daily. Again, more leaked information came out. We saw some leaked information again. Some of it could have been from Whedon. Some of it could have been from Zack Snyder, but we're getting more and more leaked footage. Every single day we're getting leaked footage now as a rule, and that's what's happening. You know, if Warner Brothers bucks on this, we're going to end up with the entire cut. One guy was saying, well, you know, no one person has the entire cut, the Snyder Cut. And I was like, it doesn't matter. One person don't have to have it. It could be many different people, and it leaks everywhere. You know, and Warner Brothers cannot keep that thing. As much as they try to lock and key that, they can't. And so at the end of the day, just as how information leaks about them continuously on a daily basis. Things are being leaked from here, there, everywhere. Just as how with Donald Trump and his governors, things were just being leaked out of his White House and leaked here and there and everywhere. Things will be leaked. And the reason why things will be leaked is because when you do something unjust, this is not Richard Donner's era. This is not Tim Burton's era. Okay. Right? You're not going to get away with it. This is social media now. This is the digital era. Everything is digitized. So people can access that information. They can hack in to get information. They can do what is necessary. People in the business can secretly, anonymously leak information. So no matter what they do, they can't keep a tabs on those things. They could try and keep a tabs on the people's computers and all that stuff. People have found new and innovative ways to get past that. So if I was Warner Brothers, I would control that and try and release that cut. And then what I have to do, if I've been touching up or interfering with the director's vision for any movie, whether it's James Wan or whatever, just back off immediately, backtrack on that, and let's let James Wan do James Wan. Okay? And get the hell out of there, because directors do that. So why the hell won't executives do the same? Have some respect for the directors, man. Let them do what they want to do. You know? Christopher Nolan didn't come and try and, micromanage, Zack Snyder. They make their arguments to and fro's, but at the end of the day, if Zack Snyder's way was better, let him do his thing. So that's what I got to say. But yes, the release of Snyder Cut movement is having effect. And you can see it. And, since I've been following this thing day by day now, I can see the changes that are happening, and they're very rapid. And like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing that cut out within, sometime next year. Okay. Very early next year, actually. So we just have to keep the pressure on. We have to keep going at it. But I just wanted to put that video out there. You can check out my other video before, which has to do with Batman. There's a cartoon concerning Batman and the police of Gotham and criminals. You can check that out as well. All right. I hope you guys have a good night. God bless. That's my last video for the day. I did 2 videos. Hope you guys have a good one. And may not see me tomorrow, but you will see me the day after. All right. Blessings, man. Peace.